Greetings in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. How's everyone doing today? I've just returned back to the road from being home on Saturday. Had to leave Sunday night to get to Trinity, Texas, where I am right now, being unloaded at Alco. Things are in place for me to get the Ranger fixed. I've decided that our Ford F-150 is, or 250 is gonna, we're gonna sell pretty cheap. There's just no way I can have the time to fix it. Somebody decided to help me out and take a wheel off to fix a bearing, and they never finished the job. So now it's completely disabled, and no garage is going to tow it for us because it's a rear wheel that's been taken off. And there's, like I said, there's no way for me to have the time to get it to fix it myself, and to have someone come out and fix it for me. It's going to cost too much. So I figure what I'm going to do is put it on eBay to have people bid on it, how much they want for it. The truck works. It's a real good truck. I've even used it to haul our sheep. But it ain't worth messing with. But the Ranger, I will have R&G come out and tow it and get that one fixed, so we do have a truck. We're going to need one to get the house remodeled. Last week I talked about the responsibility and job of the federal government according to the Constitution, powers given to it by the Constitution, and that these are the only powers given to it by the Constitution. Now there are others in amendments to the Constitution, which I will talk about that later on in these series of videos. In fact, I'll be starting on the amendments probably the next video that I do. Right now, I want to talk about the states. Now, states is pretty short on what it talks about in the as far as what the Constitution says the states are to do. And this can be found in Article 4 of the Constitution. And really, this is how short it is. It's only got 3 sections to it. Actually 4. And what it is and the reason for this, because actually the states have lots of power. Quite a bit of power, in fact. As I've said in my last blog, that the states have, the Constitution wasn't really meant or written to protect the people from the states per se. There are a few amendments in the Constitution that guarantees individual rights, and these are found in the Bill of Rights and the first 10 amendments of the Constitution. But as far as constitutional rights given to the people, there's just those, and a few others that were added later on, but not a whole lot. And I will get into why that was and why it's actually good. But first, as far as what the Constitution says as far as the state's responsibility and what they have to do. In Section 1, it talks about each state is to honor all other states. Um, in Section 2, it talks about extradition. Um, and what that is if you can commit a crime in one state and you flee into another state, it's actually that other state has to take you back or make it available for the state that you're charged in to come and pick you up. Yeah, the extradition isn't totally the states being nice to each other. It's actually in the Constitution. They have to do that. And Section 3 talks about new states. Of course, this is where Congress comes in, and it talks about the procedures for a new state. And then Section 4 is Republican government. And this actually isn't something that states have to do. This is what the federal government has to do and guarantees to the states. And that is that the federal government will guarantee that all the states will have a Republican form of government. That if any other foreign government comes in and decides to try to take over that state, the United States will protect it. And that's it as far as the responsibilities of the state and to what the federal government will do for the states. As far as the other articles that's in the Constitution, just go over these real briefly. I do recommend that everyone get a copy of the Constitution and actually read it through. Because of time constraints, I can't go over every thing. The purpose of these videos is mostly to tell everyone the job of the federal government, and the guaranteed rights of each individual according to the Constitution, and then how the federal government changes the Constitution, the only way it can be changed. And actually, the very next article talks about that, called an amendment. Amendment is the only way that the federal government can change the Constitution. You can't have the president stepping in and saying, we're going to change this. Congress itself can't do it. Neither can the Supreme Court. It is only through an amendment. And what this is a procedure that the Founding Fathers put into the Constitution that will make sure that if the Constitution has to be changed, it is done in a way that all the states agree with it, and that the government just can't come in and start making its own rules. Founding Fathers were very smart. They knew the Constitution would have to be changed one time. In fact, slavery was one of those issues that came up. Believe it or not, despite what some people will say, the Founding Fathers did talk about slavery. They couldn't put it in there at the time that they were making the Constitution because it wouldn't pass. But they knew at one time it would be passed. And slavery, along with other issues, was one of the things that came up. And they knew eventually it was going to be changed, and they wanted to leave that door open. And what this is 3/4 of the states have to agree with the change. Amending the Constitution is a very, very difficult procedure. Which is why sometimes federal government will try to make new laws themselves without amending the Constitution. Article 6, Article 5 was the amendments, how to amend the Constitution. Article 6 talks about debt, and that's also the federal government's job. And also oaths and supremacy, including treaties and how treaties are handled. Treaties with other countries. Article 7 talks about ratification of the Constitution, which includes all of the signatures of the people who approved the Constitution. Now, the amendments. The first 10 amendments of the Constitution is actually is also known as the Bill of Rights. Constitution was written up before the Bill of Rights was. These are the first list of freedoms that or rights that the people were guaranteed. These are rights that states are not even allowed to take away. The reason these were added to the Constitution, which was added, by the way, December 15th, 1791, was because some people did feel that the Constitution did not guarantee enough rights to the people. And so the Founding Fathers added these to it. The First Amendment, freedom of religion. Notice, freedom of religion, not freedom from religion. The press, giving the press freedoms, which is how we are kept informed of what's going on. And expressions. You have the right to express what you feel, of course, as long as you're not harming other people. You can't go around beating people up because it's your expression of how you feel about the person. Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. Now, there's people who talk about that this right was only for the militia. But if you read the Founding Fathers' writings, including the Federalist Papers, you'll see that when they were talking about militia, they weren't talking about government militia. I mean, think about it. Why did they put the right to bear arms in the Constitution and in our Bill of Rights? It was to protect us, to make it so we can protect ourselves from the government. What sense would it make if the government controls the militia? I mean, if the government ever became too strong and the people felt they had to fight for their freedom again against the overpowering government, do you really, really think that the government would send the militia after itself? It doesn't make any sense. So what they were talking about was an actual civilian militia, not even owned by the state. Individuals. The Third Amendment, quartering of soldiers. Anyone who knows history knows why this was put in. The government can't force you to house a soldier. Without your consent. You have to agree with it. Search and seizure. We all should know about that. That's the Fourth Amendment. The Fifth Amendment, trial and punishment. compensation for taking, and ratified. Which has all been ratified by in uh, December 15th, 1791, of course. Um, compensation for takings is, for instance, your property. The government must pay you to take take your property. And also talks about, this is where the uh, speedy trial comes in, and also you may have heard people talk about pleading the fifth. You don't have to say anything against yourself. The Sixth Amendment is actually, that's where the right to a speedy trial comes in. The Seventh Amendment, trial by jury. You do have a right to a trial by jury. And in the area where the crime was committed, or said to be committed. Cruel and unusual punishment. Now, cruel and unusual punishment, people, is in the Constitution. Okay? The Constitution was written for the citizens of the United States. Okay? Now, of course, you know, um, we don't like to see anyone cruelly punished, at least those of us that are care about other people. But do keep in mind that the Constitution was only written for the people in this country, citizens. Okay, it wasn't written for people who's attacking our country. And then the Ninth Amendment is construction of the Constitution. And then our 10th Amendment is powers of the states and people. This is, here to me, is one of the most important amendments of the Constitution. And this is what I've been talking about with how the Constitution limits the federal government by telling it what powers it has. And then the state governments are only limited by the amendments written that give us the rights, that specify that these are individual rights that states can't take away. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states, respectively, or to the people. So, any rights that are not listed in the Constitution that specify it's our rights that can't be taken away by any form of government is therefore given to the states. So, how about marriage? Is marriage listed anywhere in the Constitution? Now, I've not read all the amendments. There are other rights given to us beyond the Bill of Rights. But you can read through them and you'll see that marriage is not a right. And in Articles 1, 2, and 3, which I've already gone through in the previous blog, does not give the federal government any power over marriage. Therefore, the states do have the right to regulate marriage. Now, I'm going to be open to you guys. I don't think it's right for any government to regulate or even give benefits to people who are married, special benefits. I don't think marriage was given to government, but going by the Constitution, that is how it is. Okay? Um, some of the other issues that's popped up. Contraceptives. Not given to the power of the federal government at all, is it? Federal government cannot at all regulate, push, promote contraceptives. Uh, and if you read through all of the amendments, you'll also notice that contraceptives are not a right to the people. Therefore, the states do have the power to regulate contraceptives. Just the way it is. Now, I don't know any state that does, but abortion, another one. So, you can do that with any topic that pops up. You know, is it a right? Does the federal government have power over it? Is it a right that the states can't take away? Or do states have complete control of whether they want to make a law on it or not? Driving, not a right. Not given to the power of the federal government. States have control over it. They can make laws about it. They can take your driver's license away. I'll go ahead and go over some of these other amendments real quick. Amendment 11. This one here was added February 7th, 1795. And this is judicial limits. Putting limits on the judicial branch. Amendment 12. And this was added June 15th, 1804, and explains the choosing of the president and vice president, which of course changed the original part of the Constitution. And this is what I'm talking about with amending the Constitution. The Constitution can be changed, but have to go through the amendment process on that change. Going through history, some of these amendments you go through, should jog memory. Some of you might have learned in high school. Some changes throughout history. Amendment 13. This here is the abolishing of slavery, December 6th, 1865. Luckily, back then they knew how to amend the Constitution, because when this was amended, it prevents the Supreme Court from being able to say it's unconstitutional, because guess what? It's now added to the Constitution. They can't say it's unconstitutional. Amending the Constitution ties the hands of the courts. They can't stop it. In fact, the president doesn't even have any say in amending the Constitution. It's just between Congress and the states. And once it's approved by both of them, it changes the law. And that's why our founding fathers made it so difficult. And citizens' rights, Amendment 14, which was July 9th, 1868. This Amendment 15, right for all races to vote, February 3rd, 1870. That caused some uprisings, didn't it? When that was amended. I can imagine why, because people knew that once that was added to the Constitution, you can't take it to court. Amendment 16. And also it makes it so where in the future it can't be changed without another amendment. Very hard process. One that definitely will not pass today, because everybody, well, majority of people agreed that everyone should have the right to vote if you're a U.S. citizen. Amendment 16, status of income tax clarified. Amendment 17, senators elected by popular vote, something that I hear some people want to change again. Amendment 18, liquor was abolished. That there, you might remember from history, January 16th, 1919. Amendment 19, women's suffrage. That there in their popular event in history. If you remember when they made it to where all races could vote, they have not made it to where women could vote yet. So women were still not allowed to vote. Women's suffrage, as everyone should know, is giving women the right to vote. And then the president and congressional terms were set. Amendment 20. Amendment 18 appealed. Amendment 18, this was talking about with once something is amended to the Constitution, the only way to get it out of the Constitution is another amendment process. This here is an example of that. Amendment 18 abolishing alcohol. Amendment 21 got rid of that. Now made alcohol legal. Amendment 22, presidential term limits. Again, another very popular history event of why that one came up. This amendment came about February 27th, 1951. Look up history and find out why that was changed. Amendment 23, presidential vote for District of Columbia. Amendment 24, poll tax has been barred. You can no longer tax people to vote. Amendment 25, presidential disability and secession. Amendment 26, voting age was set to 18 years old back in July 1st, 1971. Now we get to where some people will remember. Amendment 27, limiting congressional pay increases. That one there is recent history. May 7th, 1992. That was the last time that the Constitution was amended. Go through these and find out what your rights really are. Okay, so we know we got the first 9 amendments. Now, these are the only rights we have under the Constitution. Everything else is left up to the states. The states have the right to make laws in regards to things like marriage and abortion. And the federal government has no right to force anything or to tell the states what they can and can't do outside of the powers given to them. The people were not afraid of their state governments when the Constitution was written. In fact, they were happy with it. They didn't want the federal government stepping in. This is good because the Founding Fathers knew that laws had to be set. And I know some people say, well, as long as it's not bothering anyone else, as long as you're not harming anyone else. But sometimes we don't see what harms other people because that doesn't happen fast. It happens long term. If you have, uh, for instance, a lot of drunkards out in the streets, not harming anyone, not personally, but how long do you think it'll take for that town to, all the people who are responsible, working, being good neighbors, how long do you think it'll take for all of them to move out? And there's several example lifestyles you can pick that where that can happen. Okay, so the federal government, the founding fathers, did not want to impede on the states in making laws that the people of that state wanted. The people of states have control over their own government. It's a whole lot easier for you to go to your state government and tell them what you want, to get a bunch of people together to make laws that you want. Not so easy for you to go to the federal government and do that. Many states are more democratic. Remember, the federal government is a Republican, not Republican, a republic form of government. A lot of states do have a more democracy as far as voting in what laws they want in the Constitution, their local Constitution. And you ask me, that's the way it should be. Well, I'm thinking that they're probably almost done unloading my truck, so I better let this go ahead and end this for now. And I'll do another blog hopefully in the near future. Maybe tie up anything I may have forgotten in this blog here. Kind of do a follow-up blog. Y'all take care and God bless.